I've started a new channel called Lunila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. The teacup exploded first. One moment Sarah Langley was sighing over lukewarm chamomile, the next her entire garden lit up like a disco hosted by thunder gods. Roses flattened, the oak tree combusted without permission, and a circular shadow swallowed her shed whole. Sarah blinked twice, half convinced she'd left the kettle on again. A blinding beam split the clouds, humming so loudly that her dentures rattled even though she wasn't wearing any. Then came the voice, a booming, metallic proclamation from the sky. Attention, widow of the Terran Annihilator. You are under arrest for crimes against the Galactic Union. Sarah set down what was left of her teacup, raised an unimpressed eyebrow, and muttered, "Terran what now?" A tractor beam wrapped around her like an enthusiastic jellyfish, and she was pulled up through the air. The chickens screamed. The neighbor's dog barked hysterically. The last thing Sarah saw before vanishing into the light was her laundry, her favorite pink pajamas, being dragged across the fence by the wind. When she landed, it wasn't softly. She hit a metal floor face first and discovered the smell of alien disinfectant was distressingly similar to hospital bleach. Around her stood 3 towering figures with shiny armor and egos twice as large. One had a face like a lizard that had learned disappointment, another had glowing mandibles, and the last, tall and slim, had the disapproving stare of a tax auditor. They circled her as if inspecting a rare insect. "So this is the widow of Daniel Langley," hissed the lizard one, clearly their leader. "The destroyer of Zor 9, the breaker of fleets, the scourge of the stars." Sarah adjusted her cardigan. He was a warehouse supervisor in Milton Keynes. The aliens exchanged puzzled looks. The mandible-faced one tried to hide a laugh. "How quaint," he said. "Your mate nearly wiped out 3 civilizations, and you thought he managed supply chains." "He did manage supply chains," she snapped. "He managed to forget every anniversary and lose his keys every morning, that's what he managed." Her captors led her down a corridor lined with pulsing blue lights. Every so often, a smaller alien scuttled past, saluting nervously. Sarah was half terrified and half furious. She had spent 20 years balancing bills, fixing leaky taps, and arguing with electricity companies. Being abducted by space reptiles was not on her to-do list. She stumbled as the lizard commander, who finally introduced himself as General Crox, announced her arrival to a hall filled with alien officers. "Behold," he roared, "the frail human widow of the greatest menace the galaxy has ever known." The crowd burst into laughter. Sarah folded her arms and said, "You know, I once worked in retail. I've seen scarier customers." The laughter stopped. Crox frowned. "You do not fear us?" She looked him up and down. "You're wearing shoulder pads bigger than your head, dear. Fear isn't the first thing that comes to mind." Even the mandible one chuckled before quickly coughing to cover it up. Crox bared his fangs, frustrated. "Your insolence will not save you. Your husband destroyed our fleet at the Battle of Verkana. He tricked us into surrendering using false peace codes." Sarah blinked. "He what now?" "He was known as the Annihilator," said the slimmer alien, who spoke like every word was a complaint. "A human strategist of unmatched brilliance. We thought him dead. Imagine our surprise to find his mate still breathing." Sarah stared at them, her mind stuttering between confusion and disbelief. Daniel, her Daniel, who once got lost driving to Tesco, was apparently some intergalactic warmonger. They projected a hologram into the air, a man in military gear, smirking as alien ships exploded behind him. It was unmistakably her husband. Same crooked smile, same irritatingly confident stance. Sarah's heart twisted. The aliens expected her to faint in fear, but she just sat down on the cold floor, muttering, "So that's where all those work trips to Geneva were." Crox sneered. "You mock his legacy?" She looked up, eyes sharp now. "No. I just realized I was married to an idiot who forgot to tell me he was famous in space." The aliens didn't know what to do with her. Mockery had been their plan, but her sarcasm disarmed them. The mandible-faced one, apparently an admiral named Zuth, leaned toward Crox. Perhaps she knows more than she lets on. Humans are devious. I can hear you, Sarah said. And I'm only devious when someone finishes my biscuits. She rubbed her temples, still trying to process the madness. Her husband had been a secret galactic hero, or villain, depending on perspective, and now she was being held hostage by aliens who couldn't tell a cardigan from a combat suit. They locked her in a glass-walled cell that overlooked the stars. For a brief moment she forgot her fear. The view was breathtaking, planets glowing like lanterns, nebulae swirling in impossible colors. Somewhere out there, Daniel had walked this same deck, fought these same creatures, and never said a word. She sat quietly, emotions tangled. "You always did love surprises," she whispered. Moments later, the door hissed open. A young alien soldier entered, shaking nervously. I brought you sustenance," he stammered, offering what looked like glowing jelly. "Lovely," she said. "Do you have anything that doesn't look like it's thinking about me?" The soldier almost smiled before running off. Alone again, Sarah noticed a strange metal cube in the corner. It pulsed faintly, humming like a heartbeat. Curiosity won over caution. When she touched it, a beam of light shot out, forming a ghostly image of Daniel. "Sarah," the hologram said, his voice softer than she remembered. "If you're seeing this, I've failed to keep the peace. They've broken the treaty. You must not trust anyone aboard this ship. There's a code hidden where you least expect it." The message cut off abruptly. Sarah's hands trembled. "Oh, Daniel," she murmured. "Even dead, you're giving me chores." The cube flickered again, projecting coordinates in alien script. Before she could study them, alarms blared. The ship shuddered violently. Outside, distant explosions rippled through the blackness. A robotic voice shouted something about incoming vessels. Through the transparent wall, Sarah saw other ships approaching, sleek, darker, more menacing. They were not friendly. Crox's voice thundered through the comms. "Prepare for battle. The Widow carries the Annihilator's key." Sarah looked down at the cube, then up at the chaos outside. For the first time, she wasn't confused. She was angry. Angry that her husband had hidden this world from her, angry that these creatures treated her like a relic, and angry that her tea had gone cold. "Well," she muttered, clutching the cube, "if they want the Widow, they've got her." As the ship rocked and the stars flickered with laser fire, Sarah Langley, retired widow from Milton Keynes, unknowingly stepped into her late husband's unfinished war. And somewhere in the ship's systems, a dormant file stirred to life, titled in human language only, "For my wife." The alarms howled through the corridors like furious ghosts. Red lights flashed against steel walls as the ship tilted under enemy fire. Sarah clutched the cube in both hands, trying to stay upright while the floor bucked beneath her. Somewhere in the chaos, alien soldiers barked orders in a language that sounded like angry plumbing. A voice over the comms shouted for all units to prepare for boarding. She didn't understand the words, but the tone was universal: panic. The cell door slid open automatically as power flickered, and she took that as a sign from the universe to leave before someone remembered she was supposed to be locked up. Sarah stumbled into the hallway, her slippers slapping against the metal floor. The cube pulsed in her hands, glowing brighter each second. She could hear muffled explosions outside, followed by the high-pitched whine of lasers. She passed a window and saw smaller ships darting around like wasps, firing at the massive vessel that held her captive. "Wonderful," she muttered. "Kidnapped and about to die in traffic." She ducked into a side passage as smoke began to fill the air. A group of alien officers ran past, shouting at each other, oblivious to the middle-aged human with messy hair hiding behind a panel. A sharp voice came from behind her. "Human. Stop." She turned and saw the tall, slender alien with sharp features and a calm but dangerous aura. It was the strategist, the one who looked perpetually unimpressed with existence. You cannot wander here. You will be vaporized. Sarah raised her hand. Wouldn't be the first time a man threatened that. Lead the way, E.T. The strategist blinked slowly, clearly unsure if she was mocking him. I am strategist Vera of the Thren Dominion. You are Daniel Langley's widow. Sarah sighed. Yes, thank you, everyone seems very excited about that fact. Do you all send sympathy cards or just abductions? Vera ignored the comment and motioned for her to follow. You must come with me. This attack is not random. They are after you. They reached a sealed chamber, quieter than the rest of the ship. The walls were covered in holographic screens showing data, maps, and symbols she couldn't read. Vera worked a console, locking the door behind them. You have something, he said, pointing at the cube. That device is keyed to your genetic pattern. No one else can open it. Lucky me, she replied, holding it up. My husband's parting gift apparently includes a war. The cube pulsed again, and a beam of light projected Daniel's face once more. Sarah, if you've survived the first encounter, then time is shorter than I hope. The Galactic Union has fractured. The Void Syndicate has risen. They will come for the peace codes. Do not let them have them. You'll know what to do when the time comes. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving silence behind. Vera stared at her with unblinking eyes. Your mate was a genius. He foresaw this conflict. The codes he mentions could command every peacekeeping AI in the quadrant. He also foresaw our kitchen sink leaking every spring, she said dryly. He didn't fix that either. But her voice trembled slightly. Somewhere deep inside her, the reality began to sink in. Daniel hadn't just been her husband. He had been part of something far greater, and far more dangerous. Vera leaned closer. If those codes fall into the wrong hands, entire worlds will burn. Sarah frowned. And if they stay in mine, they'll probably get lost under the sofa. The ship lurched again, and Vera steadied himself. We must reach the central core before Crox destroys the vessel. He believes your death will erase the codes. That sounds like a very bad plan, she said. I have a better one. Let's not die. He gave her a sharp look. You are unusually calm for a human facing annihilation. I raised 2 teenagers, darling, she said. You stop fearing the end of the world after that. They ran down a corridor illuminated by emergency lights. The smell of ozone filled the air as energy blasts ripped through bulkheads. They dodged falling debris while alien soldiers fought around them. At one point, a plasma bolt struck near her feet, and she screamed, more from indignation than fear. Watch where you're shooting, you overgrown lizard, she yelled. Vera grabbed her arm and pulled her into a maintenance shaft. Quiet, he hissed. They will detect us. She took a breath, brushing dust off her cardigan. Detect us? I think I've already filed a complaint with their HR department. They reached the central chamber, a vast room filled with humming machinery and a holographic globe of the galaxy. Crox was there, his scales reflecting red light, arguing with Admiral Zuth. You fool! Crox roared. She holds the key. Destroy her and the codes vanish forever. Zutha's mandibles clicked. Or she activates them, and every system turns against us. We should keep her alive. Their argument echoed through the chamber. Sarah peeked around the corner. Charming workplace culture, she whispered. Vera gestured for her to stay hidden, then stepped out to confront them. Crox, the human is under my command. She is our only link to the Annihilator's system. Crox snarled. You overstep, strategist. His tail lashed the floor, leaving scorch marks. Sarah's patience snapped. She walked out from behind the wall, holding the cube. If you two are done measuring egos, maybe someone could explain why my husband left me a galactic doomsday puzzle. Every head turned. The soldiers raised their weapons. Crox bared his teeth. Give me the device. No, she said. You can't even handle basic teamwork. You'd probably blow up your own ship. A low murmur ran through the alien rank. Vera smirked slightly. She has a point. The cube suddenly emitted a shrill tone, glowing so brightly that everyone shielded their eyes. The holographic globe changed, displaying hundreds of red dots spreading across the galaxy. A voice spoke from the system itself, mechanical yet eerily human. Peace treaty violation detected. Activation sequence initiated. Crox shouted, "What have you done?" "Nothing." Sarah shouted back. "I didn't even press anything." Vera grabbed her hand, studying the device. "It is scanning for the Widow protocol. He left it tied to your biosignature." The words meant nothing to her, but the urgency in his tone was enough. "So what now?" she asked. "Now," Vera said, "we run." They sprinted as the chamber began to collapse. Energy surged through the floor, and the air shimmered with static. Crox roared behind them, firing his weapon wildly. One blast grazed her shoulder, burning her sleeve. The pain was sharp, but she kept moving. "You're all insane!" she yelled as they dove into a transport lift. The doors sealed just as the chamber exploded below them. When the lift stopped, they emerged into a quieter section of the ship, smoke rising from every vent. Sarah clutched the cube against her chest. "I think your ship's warranty has expired." Vera looked at her curiously. "You jest even while the galaxy burns." She gave a tired smile. "If I stop, I'll scream. So yes, I jest." The stars were a blur of silver streaks as the stolen scout vessel hurtled through space. Sarah gripped the pilot's seat so tightly her knuckles were white, though that did little to steady the ride. She had no idea which button did what, and the console seemed to hum in judgment each time she pressed the wrong thing. Vera sat beside her, motionless except for the occasional flick of his long fingers over the controls, clearly doing his best not to point out that she was steering like a drunk pigeon. The ship jolted again, and Sarah glared at him. "You could have mentioned that button fired torpedoes before I pressed it." Vera's expression didn't change. "I assumed you would not press the large red one labeled launch." "Well, now you know how bad you are at assuming," she snapped back, struggling to keep the craft on course. Outside, two smaller vessels were pursuing them, their engines glowing an ominous green. "They're gaining," Vera said calmly. "Oh, are they?" she said. "I thought they were here to deliver flowers." He adjusted a few settings, and the ship lurched forward, doubling its speed. The stars elongated into pure light. Sarah's stomach dropped, and she gritted her teeth, feeling both terrified and strangely exhilarated. "What exactly are we running from this time?" she asked, forcing her voice steady. Vera didn't look up from the controls. "The remnants of Crox's fleet. They want the device, and they will not stop until they have it." "Brilliant," she muttered. "Chased by lizards because my husband left me a glowing Rubik's Cube. Typical Tuesday." Vera glanced at her. "You hide fear behind humor. That is inefficient." "I hide irritation behind humor," she corrected. "Fear's got its own drawer." The ship shook as enemy fire grazed its side. Panels flickered and smoke curled from the back. Sarah slapped a random button, and the vessel spun violently, throwing them both against their seat. Vera shouted something in his own language that probably wasn't flattering. "I was trying to help," she protested. "You disabled our stabilizers," he said, gripping the console as alarms blared. "Then enable them again," she shouted. He did, and the ship steadied, but now the pursuers were even closer. "We cannot outrun them," Vera said. "We must hide." "Hide where?" she demanded. "Space doesn't exactly have alleyways." His eyes glowed faintly as he scanned the star map. "There," he said, pointing to a cluster of debris floating near a fractured asteroid belt. "If we can blend with the wreckage, they may lose our trail." "Blend? This thing looks like a flying microwave. They'll spot us before we even park." But he was already steering them toward the asteroid field, and she didn't have a better idea. They slipped into the shadows of drifting rocks and twisted metal remains of old ships. The silence was almost eerie after the chaos of pursuit. Sarah finally exhaled and slumped back in her seat. "If I ever make it home, I'm never complaining about traffic again. Vera was scanning the sensors, his tone thoughtful. You are adapting faster than I expected. Few species handle this level of stress without breaking. She smirked weakly. Oh, I'm breaking. Just doing it politely. The cube pulsed softly in her lap, casting a pale glow across her hands. She turned it over, noticing faint lines she hadn't seen before, almost like an engraved map. This thing keeps changing, she said. Vera leaned closer, studying it. It's responding to proximity data. I believe it's leading us somewhere. Fantastic, she muttered. Now the space Rubik's Cube is bossing me around. A sudden thud shook the hull. Sarah froze. Tell me that was your stomach. Vera's head tilted, listening. No. Something attached to us. Before she could respond, the floor hatch burst open, and 3 armored figures dropped inside. Sarah shrieked and ducked as plasma rifles swung toward them. Vera moved with startling speed, twisting one attacker's arm and sending him flying. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the emergency rack and sprayed another alien straight in the face. You'd be amazed how often this works, she said as the creature stumbled blindly. The third soldier lunged, knocking the cube from her hands. It skittered across the floor, humming louder. Sarah dove after it, sliding under the console as laser fire scorched the wall above her head. Vera fought the last attacker hand-to-hand, precise and brutal, his movements almost graceful. Finally, the alien crashed to the floor, unconscious. The silence that followed was filled only by Sarah's heavy breathing. She crawled out, clutching the cube to her chest. Please tell me that's all of them. Vera checked the readings. For now. His calm tone made her want to hit him with the extinguisher too. You could try sounding slightly worried, she said. It helps morale. He regarded her seriously. I have no morale. I have objectives. Well, I have tea and sarcasm, she said, so together we're halfway to a functioning human being. She stood, brushing off dust, and glanced at the unconscious soldiers. Who were they? Void Syndicate mercenaries, he replied. They serve whoever pays the most. They likely tracked your husband's signature through the cube. So Daniel's brilliance keeps giving, she muttered. If I survive this, I'm putting his name on the worst husband of the Millennium plaque. They repaired what they could of the ship and drifted deeper into the asteroid field. For the first time since her abduction, Sarah found herself staring quietly at the stars without fear. They were beautiful, cold, endless. You really think Daniel did all this to protect peace? She asked softly. He was called the Annihilator. Vera looked out the viewport. Titles are often wrong. He ended wars by making others too afraid to start them. That is not the same as wanting destruction. She considered that. Then why hide it from me? Perhaps, Vera said, he wanted you to live in a world untouched by what he had seen. Her chest tightened. That sounded exactly like something Daniel would do, decide what was best for her without ever asking. The cube pulsed again, brighter this time, and a new image appeared in the air. It showed a giant ring-shaped structure surrounded by swirling nebulae. Text scrolled in alien script, and then English appeared beneath it. Orion Gate. She frowned. What is that? A relic, Vera said. An ancient system Daniel helped restore after the wars. It was meant to preserve peace, but no one knows how it truly works. And this thing wants us to go there? It appears so, he said. If he left you the coordinates, then Orion Gate may hold the key to stopping the Syndicate. Sarah rubbed her temples. Great. My husband's secret peace weapon hidden inside a giant space donut. Perfect. They set a course toward the coordinate. As the engines powered up, Vera turned to her. You understand what you carry, don't you? That cube could decide the fate of every world in this sector. The Orion Gate loomed ahead, an enormous circle of golden light that pulsed slowly like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Sarah stared through the viewport, awed and uneasy. The closer they flew, the more she could see its impossible details, thousands of ancient runes carved into its inner surface, faint energy lines connecting the outer ring to the blazing core at the center. The thing was alive in a way that made her skin crawl, humming softly as if aware of their presence. Vera stood at the controls, his sharp eyes narrowing. "No ship has approached the gate in decades," he said quietly. "Many believe it cursed." "Wonderful," Sarah muttered. "My husband leaves me a glowing puzzle box and a cursed space donut. Just once, I'd like a normal inheritance." The cube in her hands pulsed in rhythm with the gate, brighter than ever. The hum grew louder until it filled the cabin. Sarah winced. "It's like it's calling to it." "Not calling," Vera corrected. "Synchronizing." The moment they crossed the outer threshold, the ship's systems went dark. Lights flickered out, engines died, and silence pressed against them. Only the stars outside remained, distorted by the luminous halo surrounding them. Sarah's pulse quickened. "Tell me that's normal." "It is not," Vera said flatly. "This is a containment field. We are being scanned." The cube lifted from her palms, floating midair. Beams of light wrapped around it, dissecting it like curious fingers. Sarah instinctively reached out. "Hey! That's mine." A deep voice resonated through the air, neither male nor female. "Identify." Vera stepped forward. "This is the widow of Daniel Langley, bearer of the Annihilator's key." The voice paused, vibrating through every surface. Identity confirmed. Widow recognized. Protocol Theta initiated. The cube split open into 6 segments, rearranging itself into a holographic sphere that projected Daniel's face once again, larger than life. "If you're seeing this," he began, his tone grim, "then the peace has failed." Sarah's breath caught. It wasn't the short message from before. This was something deeper, recorded long before he died. "I built the Orion Gate to ensure no species could ever start another galactic war. It was meant to protect, not destroy. But the Void Syndicate seeks to corrupt it. The only one who can stop them is someone who understands what peace costs." He smiled faintly then, a smile that twisted Sarah's chest. "That's you, Sarah. You always understood." The message ended, and the sphere collapsed into her hands again. Silence hung between them. "He always did love his dramatic reveals," she said softly, though her voice trembled. Vera watched her with something close to respect. "He trusted you with the galaxy's most powerful device. That must mean something." "It means I can't even yell at him for it," she said. "That's what it means." Before Vera could reply, alarms erupted again. The darkness outside split apart as multiple ships emerged from warp. Crox's fleet. Their sleek, jagged silhouettes filled the space beyond the gate, weapons glowing. "They followed us," Vera said, moving to the console. "They will attempt to seize the gate." Sarah looked at the holographic interface lighting up again, recognizing some of the symbols Daniel had left in the cube. "Maybe we can activate it before they get here." "Do you know how?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I've been married long enough to know that pressing random buttons is usually how my husband got things to work." She placed the cube on the console, and the entire room came alive with motion. Holograms filled the space, maps, equations, and alien runes swirling like a storm. The gate responded, its inner circle beginning to rotate, generating waves of golden energy that spread outward. Crox's voice boomed through the comms. "Widow of Langley, surrender the key or be destroyed." Sarah rolled her eyes. "He's very big on ultimatums, isn't he?" Vera's fingers danced across the controls. "He's arming plasma arrays. We have minutes before impact." "Then we make them count," she said. The gate flared, light exploding outward in a spiral. The energy hit the lead enemy ship, disintegrating it instantly. The remaining vessels faltered. "It's working," Vera said. "You're channeling the gate's defense systems." Sarah didn't feel like she was channeling anything, she felt like she was about to pass out. The cube glowed so bright it hurt to look at, and her mind flooded with images, wars, treaties, Faces of people she didn't know. Daniel's memories, his calculations, his decisions. She could feel his thoughts whispering through her like echoes. Her breath hitched. He linked this thing to himself, she gasped. It's his mind. His will. Vera looked startled. Then you're merging with it. That sounds unhealthy, she said weakly, gripping the console to steady herself. The ship shuddered as another blast rocked the gate. Crox's voice thundered again. You think you can wield the Annihilator's legacy, human? You are nothing. You'd be amazed what a widow can do when she's angry, she muttered. Her hand slammed a sequence of glowing runes that appeared instinctively in front of her. The gate erupted in light again, forming a barrier that rippled like molten glass, blocking the next volley of plasma. The feedback threw Crox's fleet backward, scattering the smaller ships into the void. The brief calm that followed was shattered by an explosion inside the gate's structure itself. Energy flared wildly, and the core destabilized. It's overloading, Vera shouted. The activation sequence is unstable. Sarah stumbled back. Can we stop it? No, he said, but we might redirect it. The cube vibrated violently in her hands, projecting one last fragment of Daniel's voice. Sarah, if the gate ever loses control, the only way to stabilize it is to sync it with a human mind, someone strong enough to balance logic with emotion. She froze. He can't mean he does, Vera said grimly. It must connect to you. It's the only way to contain the energy. Her pulse hammered. I'm not syncing with an ancient alien superweapon. You already are, Vera said. You've been since we entered the gate. The energy intensified until the ship's panels cracked under pressure. Sarah felt heat crawling up her arms, light burning through her veins like fire. The holograms around her spun faster, displaying millions of calculations. She could feel Daniel's presence again, calm amid the chaos. You always underestimated yourself, his voice whispered. Her vision blurred, but her hands moved on their own, following patterns she didn't consciously understand. Outside, Crox's remaining fleet regrouped and fired again, their combined assault striking the gate's weakened shields. Vera shouted over the noise. If you do not release the power, it will destroy you. She shook her head. No. If I release it, they win. The gate roared, light consuming everything. Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on one thought, peace. Not the peace of treaties or weapons, but of quiet moments, of laughter, of love shared across impossible worlds. The energy bent to her will, shifting from chaos to harmony. A wave of golden light swept outward, engulfing Crox's fleet. When it faded, only silence remained. The enemy ships were gone. The gate's glow dimmed. The quiet after the storm lasted only minutes. Then the sensors began to wail again, and the black of space outside the Orion Gate filled with the dark silver hulls of Admiral Zutha's fleet. They emerged like a swarm of metallic sharks, glinting coldly in the faint light of the gate. Sarah stood at the viewport, her reflection superimposed on the distant armada. The cube was warm in her palm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Vera worked the console behind her, his movements precise and fast. They have surrounded us, he said. 30 warships, fully armed. She exhaled sharply. That's fine. I've handled worse. He turned to her. Have you truly? She glanced back, her lips tight. Once, I organized my husband's office after a year of him ignoring it. This feels about the same. Zutha's voice cut through the silence, transmitted across all frequencies. Sarah Langley, widow of the so-called Annihilator. You have done well keeping his weapon safe. Now, hand it over, and I will spare your planet. Sarah froze. The mention of Earth sent a chill through her. He knows, she said softly. Vera looked grim. They must have intercepted the Peace Code network. If he has access to Earth's coordinates, he can strike at any time. Then we can't let him leave this place alive, she said. Her voice was quiet but certain. The cube in her hand flared brighter, reacting to her resolve. Vera studied her as if seeing her for the first time. You sound like your husband. That's what scares me, she said. Xutha's fleet began to move into position, energy signatures rising like storm clouds. The Orion Gate vibrated under the tension, ready to either save or destroy. Sarah turned to Vera. If the gate can generate those defense waves again, we could hold them off. Not for long, he said. Each pulse consumes a fraction of your neural link. You will not survive many more. Then we do it carefully, she said. One problem at a time. She pressed her hand onto the cube, and streams of light spread across the command deck. The gate outside shifted, its golden rings spinning faster, forming a shimmering barrier. Xutha's fleet opened fire. Beams of plasma and sonic blasts hammered the shield, rippling waves of energy across the structure. The sound inside the ship was deafening, a chorus of thunder rolling through steel. Sarah stood her ground, eyes locked on the blinding light outside. Come on, she whispered. You want the Annihilator's wife? Here she is. The gate released a counterwave, a vast surge of light that cut through the enemy barrage. 2 ships were instantly vaporized, their fragments scattering like sparks across the void. Xutha's voice came again, colder now. You think you can control his legacy? You are nothing without him. Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. Funny. I managed to pay bills, bury him, and now apparently save the galaxy. Seems like plenty. She turned to Vera. He's expecting me to be sentimental. Let's disappoint him. Vera nodded, activating auxiliary systems to amplify the gate's field. Alarms blared as their own ship struggled to handle the energy output. The control panels glowed red, warning of overload. We are exceeding capacity, Vera shouted. If we continue, the ship will not hold. Then it's a good thing I'm not attached to it, she replied. Another blast from the fleet tore through the barrier, rocking them violently. Sparks burst from the walls. Sarah stumbled but didn't fall. The cube now hovered above her hands, emitting rays that connected to the gate's core. For a moment, everything froze, the noise, the motion, even the flicker of light, and she saw Daniel again. Not as a hologram this time, but in the flickering glow of memory, clear and vivid. He was standing beside her, calm, eyes filled with that quiet confidence she'd once mistaken for arrogance. You're doing it, Sarah, he said, his voice faint but warm. You're holding it together. You left me quite a mess, she murmured. You always were better at cleaning up, he replied with a half-smile that made her chest ache. The code will listen to you now. Finish it. Then he was gone, and the world snapped back into motion. Vera was shouting something, but Sarah barely heard him. The cube expanded again, wrapping her in light. The gate flared, forming thousands of lines of energy that extended outward, connecting to Xutha's fleet. The ships froze mid-attack, their weapons silenced. Sarah could see their silhouettes suspended like insects in amber. Xutha's furious voice echoed across the comms. What have you done? What my husband couldn't, she said. I'm rewriting your rules. The cube responded, transferring control commands across the network. The captured ships began to turn, one by one, facing their own leader. Vera's eyes widened. You're reversing their targeting protocols. They are locked on Xutha's command ship. Exactly, she said. Let them taste their own intimidation. The enemy commander realized what was happening too late. His own fleet fired on him, energy beams crossing space like webs of lightning. His ship's shield shattered, explosions bursting across its hull. For a brief, brilliant second, the void was filled with fire and light. Then it was over. The fleet fell silent. Only drifting debris remained. The Orion Gate dimmed, and the cube's glow softened until it was only a faint glimmer. Sarah swayed on her feet, exhausted but alive. Please tell me that's the end of it, she whispered. Vera checked the readings, his tone careful. For now. But the gate's power core is unstable again. It absorbed too much from the exchange. If it detonates, the blast will reach Earth. Sarah's heart sank. How much time? Minutes, Vera said. She looked down at the cube, feeling its warmth fade in her hands. He said it could stabilize if connected to a human mind. It worked before. But that connection will burn you out completely, Vera said. Your neural patterns will dissolve. She smiled faintly. Then I'll finally get some rest. She stepped toward the console, but Vera caught her arm. You cannot trade one life for billions. There must be another way. She looked at him with tired eyes. Maybe there is. But I'm the only one who can do this quickly enough. Before he could stop her, she pressed the cube to her chest. Light exploded outward, engulfing her completely. The gate responded instantly, its rings stabilizing as the wild pulses evened out. The energy surges slowed, then settled into a calm, steady rhythm. Vera shielded his eyes as the radiance intensified, filling every corner of the chamber. Through the glow, he saw her standing still, her expression peaceful. Then the light faded and she was gone. The cube hovered for a moment before falling silently to the floor, its glow extinguished. The gate outside gleamed one last time before going dark, its energy contained and quiet. The Orion Gate floated in silence, its vast golden rings now calm and motionless against the endless black. The war that had shaken half the galaxy was over, and what remained was the stillness after a storm that no one dared to break. Weeks had passed since the final blast that ended Admiral Zutha's fleet. Across the stars, whispers spread through alien channels, trading posts, and war councils alike. They spoke of the human widow who had faced entire armadas and turned them to dust, the woman who had wielded the power of the Annihilator and lived long enough to save the worlds her husband once terrified. Her name had become a legend, one told in a dozen languages, sometimes reverently, sometimes in disbelief. They called her the Widow Commander, a title she had never chosen but one she had earned. On the outer rim of the gate, Vera stood alone on a transparent platform, overseeing the reconstruction. Engineers from a dozen species worked together, patching fractured metal and recalibrating the stabilizers that had nearly torn themselves apart. The chaos of war had given way to the slow, methodical work of peace. He had thought he would never see such a day. His eyes drifted to the cube he held, still cold and dormant since Sarah's final act. He had tried to reactivate it countless times, searching for any trace of her consciousness within, but it remained silent. The power that had filled it seemed to have faded with her. Yet somehow, he could not bring himself to let it go. He looked down at the blue sphere of Earth, visible through the gate's open arc, and wondered what it must be like to live in such a place, where people built peace without understanding how fragile it truly was. The silence broke when a transmission came through. A dozen alien commanders appeared in holographic form before him, all demanding answers. General Crox was among them, his scales now dulled from battle scars. His tone, however, was very different from the one he had used when Sarah first arrived. "Strategist Vera," he said, bowing his head slightly, "we wish to discuss the treaty." Vera inclined his head. "Then let us discuss it. But remember this, there will be no more intimidation, no more weapons cloaked as promises. The new accords will be written under her name, not his." Crox hesitated. "Under hers. Under Sarah Langley," Vera said firmly. "The widow who stopped the war, not the Annihilator who started it." A ripple of murmurs spread among the delegates. After a moment, Crox nodded. "As you wish. The widow's accord, then." It was a small gesture, but a monumental one. On Earth, the news of the treaty reached humanity weeks later. Governments scrambled to understand it, scientists debated its legitimacy, and conspiracy theorists claimed it was an elaborate prank. But when the first alien emissary landed on a field in Scotland and publicly read the peace declaration signed in a dozen extraterrestrial dialects, disbelief gave way to wonder. Across cities and continents, lights flickered as the Orion Gate's image appeared in orbit, broadcasting a message recorded by Vera himself. He spoke in calm tones, translated into hundreds of languages, announcing that peace had been restored not through conquest, but through courage. He ended his speech with a name: Sarah Langley. On that day, her small house in the English countryside became a place of pilgrimage. The broken teacup she had left behind was still lying in the garden, half buried in the dirt, a silent reminder of where the story had begun. In orbit, the alien commanders who had once mocked her now gathered for what they called the Galactic Apology Council. It was an absurd name, one that Sarah would have probably laughed at. They stood in ceremonial armor, heads bowed as Vera read aloud from her final recorded message, a message he had discovered only a few days earlier hidden deep within the cube. Her voice, faint but steady, filled the chamber. If you're hearing this, it means I've done something incredibly stupid or incredibly right. Either way, it's too late to argue. You've all spent centuries fighting for things that never truly belonged to you. Maybe it's time you learn to share a galaxy instead of cutting it into pieces. The message paused, and then she added, almost laughing, "Oh, and if any of you build another death beam, I will haunt you personally." Even Crocs smiled at that. Vera ended the ceremony by placing the cube at the center of the gate's control core, embedding it as part of its new peace network. It pulsed once, a soft light blooming from within, as if acknowledging its new role. From that moment, the gate became more than a weapon or a relic, it became a symbol. Every treaty, every negotiation, every communication between worlds passed through it, carrying the echo of her choice. Over time, people began calling it the Langley Gate, and Vera never corrected them. He took command of its operations, ensuring her legacy remained untouched by politics or greed. But there were nights when he would walk the quiet corridors of the station and think he could still hear her voice, a dry, amused comment whenever the diplomats became too serious, or a whispered laugh when the engineers argued over something trivial. One evening, as he reviewed transmission logs, the console flickered unexpectedly. Static filled the air, then a familiar voice broke through. "Vera, if you're there, stop looking so dramatic." He froze. The signal was faint, ghostly, but unmistakable. "Sarah," he breathed. The voice continued, almost playful. "Before you panic, no, I'm not haunting you. At least, not yet. The system must have stored a bit more of me than we thought. I suppose I'm part of the gate now. Fitting, isn't it? He built it to control, I left it to protect." Vera closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. "You did more than protect it," he whispered. Her voice softened. "Maybe. But promise me something. Keep them talking. Keep them laughing. That's the only way peace lasts." The transmission ended, and though it never repeated again, the faint hum of the gate afterward sounded almost like quiet laughter. Months later, the Orion Gate's view of Earth became a spectacle for travelers and scholars. Pilgrims from countless worlds came to see where the Widow Commander had once stood. They brought flowers, relics, and sometimes absurd offerings like teacups painted with her face. Vera tolerated it all. It was better than war. Occasionally, he would stand at the observation deck, watching the lights of Earth glitter below, and imagine her sitting in her garden again, muttering about the state of her roses. He liked to think she would have enjoyed seeing the chaos she left behind, peaceful chaos, built from her stubbornness and heart. Years later, a small ceremony was held on Earth in her memory. Children recited her story in classrooms. A monument was built in her hometown, not of marble or steel, but of simple stone carved with her words. "Peace isn't perfect. It's just the least stupid option." People laughed at the line, then thought about it, which was exactly what she would have wanted. The Orion Gate continued to shine in the night sky, visible even to the naked eye.